Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. My name is Katlego. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a concept I got to learn a lot more about when I was interning at Sanbi, and I hope you find it as interesting as I have. So let's get into the video. So today we're going to be talking about the concept of wildlife trade and sustainable use. Firstly, what is wildlife trade? Well, wildlife trade refers to the buying and selling of wild animals, their parts and products, and it can have severe ecological and social consequences, including the depletion of wildlife populations, animal welfare issues, as well as the spread of zoonotic diseases. It refers to the buying and selling of live animals, plants, and their derivatives, which includes various parts and products derived from wildlife. This trade can involve legal and regulated activities as well as illegal and unsustainable practices. It encompasses both legal trade, such as licensed fishing and trade in certain species, and illegal trade, which involves the trafficking of protected and endangered species and their parts. Wildlife trade can be categorized in two main types, which is legal wildlife trade, I've mentioned, as well as illegal wildlife trade. First, let's dive into what legal wildlife trade involves. This involves the trade of wildlife species and their products in accordance with national and international laws and regulations. Legal trade may be conducted for various purposes such as food, medicine, scientific research, or even the pet trade. Legal trade is typically subject to permits, quotas, and regulations to ensure sustainability and prevent over-exploitation of species. On the other side of it is illegal wildlife trade, and this refers to activities that violate national and international laws, such as the trade in endangered species, protected wildlife, or their parts and derivatives. Illegal wildlife trade often involves smuggling, poaching, and trafficking of live animals or products like rhino horn, ivory, tiger bones, and exotic pets. It is driven by high profits, demand for luxury goods, as well as traditional medicine and collectibles. When I first learned about wildlife trade, to be honest, I kind of knew about it but did not know that it is a whole concept called wildlife trade. So for example, if you go to a traditional market, you find that they sell, let's say, dried herbs, dried plant root, or stuff like that. That would be categorized as wildlife trade. For example, they could be selling it for medicinal purposes or collectibles, so to speak. You find that in some markets they sell animal pelts, they sell animal horns, or you go to certain establishments and they have a, let's say, not rhino, maybe like a kudu, like kudu horns up on the wall, and you're like, how did they come into possession of such things? So this is all categorized under the concept of wildlife trade, and as I've mentioned, it involves both legal and illegal aspects, whereby legal, it's subject to permits. So the government has a permitting system where you go and you apply for a permit to, for example, go hunt in a nature reserve, and then you get to keep that animal that you've hunted. You can get a taxidermist. Is it taxidermy? I'm not sure. I'll put that concept on the screen, and they can do a whole skeleton for you that you can get to keep. You can keep the horns, you can keep the pelt, you can hang it in your house, stuff like that. Or you can have illegal wildlife trade, which is people going and poaching. The biggest one is rhino poaching, which we all know. So that is an illegal wildlife trade where people poach rhino horn to sell internationally or locally or whatever. So the illegal trade poses a significant threat to biodiversity and ecosystems and contributes to the decline of many species and therefore disrupts ecosystems globally. It also has negative socio-economic impacts, fueling corruption, organized crime, and conflict in some regions. So efforts are being made both locally in South Africa as well as globally to combat illegal wildlife trade through international agreements such as CITES, which is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Such a mouthful. I hope to make a video on CITES in the future, because it's also something I learned about in my internship that I think would be very interesting to know. So at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I would be talking about wildlife trade and sustainable use. This is because they go hand in hand. When you first hear about wildlife trade and everything that I have explained with regards to what it is, you might think that then we should stop all trade. Why are we even hunting animals? But the concept of sustainable use, this is the perfect segue to go into it, because it shows that just because there could be negative consequences to wildlife trade does not mean there shouldn't be any wildlife trade. So for example, sustainable use of natural resources is a way to promote conservation while also ensuring economic and social benefits for local communities. It involves the use of natural resources in a way that does not deplete or damage the resource. So look at the concept of animal trade and sustainable use. Basically what I'm saying is, if wildlife trade is done in a sustainable way, it could help promote conservation and in a way promote to social benefits for local communities as well as economic growth. So, for example, sustainable use of wildlife and natural resources can provide opportunities for local communities to earn a livelihood while also conserving natural resources. For example, sustainable hunting practices can help control wildlife populations while also providing meat for local consumption and income for the community. Conservation efforts such as ecotourism can also provide economic benefits to local communities while promoting protection of wildlife and natural habitats. Wildlife trade regulations such as CITES and national laws can also help to ensure sustainable use of wildlife resources. Sustainable use of natural resources and wildlife trade regulations can provide benefits at a global level, and they help address issues such as biodiversity loss and climate change. So looking at it from this perspective, whereby sustainable use can be approached from the aspect of ecotourism, and ecotourism does not necessarily only include wildlife photography and the likes, but ecotourism also involves hunting. So if a nature reserve can get a permit for hunting to occur, that is a form of legal wildlife trade where people can come hunt those animals within a certain quota, obviously, and they make money off of that. The community that is around that reserve could stand to make money because local economy is growing in that sense. So I feel that the concept of wildlife trade and sustainable use goes hand in hand, because each of them has to balance each other. So wildlife trade can have severe ecological and social consequences. Sustainable use of natural resources can provide opportunities for local communities to earn a livelihood while also conserving natural resources. So it is important that we all work together to promote sustainable use of natural resources to protect wildlife for future generations. We're not saying do not use natural resources, but we're saying use natural resources legally and in a sustainable way. So in the sense of quotas, permits and everything, it is important that you learn about those things if this is a subject you're super interested in. For example, you cannot just go into the wild and harvest natural plants. Depending on whether that plant is protected, it's endangered, it's vulnerable, you need to have a permit. You cannot just go kill animals out in the wild and go sell their derivatives or products. You need to have a permit to do stuff like that. So it is a way to teach communities or to teach people out there to say there's actually laws that apply to these things. You might not know about them, but it does not mean you need to be ignorant. I hope you've learned something from this video, and I hope to make more videos talking about concepts that I find interesting that could be educational in a way to you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.